The rhythms of normal life are returning to the British capital. Fewer masks, more tourists. Not so in May 2020, when the country was under a strict lockdown, the city silent. Yet behind the doors of 10 Downing Street, around 50 staff were enjoying drinks in a sunny garden.
Mr. Speaker, I want to apologise.
An error of judgment, Boris Johnson told Parliament on Wednesday. He thought the gathering was a work event, he said, falling within government guidelines. This after initially denying anything had taken place. The explanation, however, has enraged MPs and irked the British public.
And resign.
You can't lead and not lead by example. And if you do, you're a fraud.
I don't think that he has the confidence of the bulk of the British people anymore, and therefore I would say his days are numbered.
He probably did break the rules, but who hasn't, I suppose? You know, I don't know. I don't know.
Is it time for him to go?
Who would do a better job? Who would do a better job?
But it could be his own party that does Johnson the most damage. Several Conservative MPs have broken ranks and urged him to resign, with one MP calling him a dead man walking. Members of his cabinet, meanwhile, have rallied around him.
You could feel, I think, his frustration and his very heartfelt apologies to those, so many, all of us who lived through the very challenging lockdown rules that we had to bring in.
The majority of Conservative MPs, though, are quiet, waiting for the results of the inquiry, waiting too to hear what their constituents have to say. If public anger continues to grow, those MPs may have little choice but to table letters of no confidence in Boris Johnson. 54 letters would trigger a leadership challenge. Meanwhile, Boris Johnson's reportedly doing everything he can behind the scenes to convince MPs he's done nothing wrong. In Parliament on Thursday, the focus was back on the government's achievements in handling the pandemic, with an announcement that the COVID isolation period can now be cut.
After reviewing all of the evidence, we've made the decision to reduce the minimum self-isolation period to 5 full days in England. This country is leading the world in learning to live with COVID.
But with opinion polls putting the opposition Labour Party 10 points ahead of the Conservatives for the first time in a decade, there are fears Johnson's now more of a liability than a leader. NEAVE, Al Jazeera, London.